Well, hey there guys, I'm going to be starting some new video tutorials to kind of guide you through the basics of getting started and working within Autodesk Maya for this particular project. We're going to start with just some of the basic premises on how to get started. In this example of this video tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how, when you launch Maya, how to actually set up your project and create a project folder. So when you launch Maya, this is typically the interface you're going to get. It's going to say what's new. You can go through tutorials, obviously, and there's plenty of other resources to actually walk you through this. But again, this is how we actually get started in defining and setting a new project folder. When you create a new project folder, of course, it designates a folder on your desktop, which it also creates individual folders for all things necessary. So it creates a scene folder, it creates images folder, that's where if you render out your files, it creates a movie folder for things like play blasts. You can create folders for all your textures, and so on. So typically when you get started, just hit OK here in Maya, and this gets you to the base interface. Now yours may look a little different than mine based upon the resolution of your computer screen or even the version that you're working in. So typically what I like to get started here, before I even get started, is stretching out the timeline at the bottom. And what this basically provides you is you have 200 frames, okay? It says start 200 frames, end 200 frames. And if I go to the far right here, I get a little running man. It looks like a little orange running man in the far right corner. And this deals with the preferences for playback. Now, typically, we're working with the frame rate of 24 frames per second. Now, true, digital video is oftentimes 30 frames per second, or 2997, but when we're working in Maya, most things prefer 24 frames, which is the default of animating on what's called twos, or ones rather, for doing animation. Also, you're going to want to probably make sure your playback speed here is set to 24 frames per second by 1. That means it's going to play every frame, and you'll get a proper performance out of your animation at 24 frames per second. And you can see here we could do active, we could say loose, looping, which is automatically set to continuous, and we hit save. Now, if we want to actually change the amount of frames we have, we could always add larger or smaller number here. So again, if let's say, for example, one of your assignments is only about let's say it's 10 seconds, that would obviously be 240 frames. If it's 5 seconds, it'd be 120 frames. So we can always change this amount so we don't have a lot of exit time. Now, setting project is very simple. We go to File, Project Window. This is where we can give it a new project folder and give it appropriate names. So for example, if we're going with either the first assignment or the second assignment, or we can call it Module 1 or Module 2, we're just going to give it a simple name here. So I'll just use Module 2 as an example. Module Tool 2 _ project. And then we want to give it a proper location on our desktop. Now, when you're working like this, you're going to want to create a new folder on your desktop. And that new folder, you could call this MAA232, or you could call this whatever the project is. I'll just say 3D animation. And even in here, you might want to actually create individual folders. So you could call this Module 1. You make a new folder here and call it Module 2, or whatever you're doing. I said before I'm going to go to Module 2. I hit Select. And you see all these are the default folders that Maya is going to build. And you want to do this, or else, if you don't set a new project or define a set project, if you want to open a scene and keep working on it, Maya will not know where to save things, and they will get lost in the lovely world of My Documents, for example, if you're on a PC. So this makes sure that everything you're working on the project has a proper place to go. We hit Accept, and just as an example here, if I were just to create a simple ball and move it up from one side, and let's assume I just want to make this ball slide across the screen, I could go into the Attribute Editor, right-click and key the value of this ball here, go to a particular amount of time, move this ball over to here, again, right-click and key selected. So when I rewind, you see it actually gives me the animation of the ball moving across the screen, which means all I have to do now is just save scene as, I'll call this some basic ball move, and it's going to save automatically into the Module 2 Project Scenes folder. We hit save, and we can get going. Now, if we are going to try and open up that scene, okay, we would want and continue working, let's say at a later time after you've closed down your software, we could always go to Set Project, find the project we just defined, and set it. And that now means that if we open the scene file, it's going to know exactly where that scene file is, see, and where to get to it so that we can then start animating or continue to work on that designated assignment. So that's about it for here. Again, remember, step one is to set the project or define the new project. Thank you.